There you go.
Okay, we're beginning the May 13th, 2024 Community Housing Committee meeting of Yarmouth. And I will open the meeting. We have a quorum here. I'm going to open the meeting up. And I will begin by making this necessary announcement. This is to formally advise that as required by MGL Chapter 30A, Section 18 to 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Community Housing Committee will hold this public meeting at this time and place stated in this notice. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided by Zoom, by the Zoom link that was provided in the notice. And the meeting is being recorded as I speak. So I welcome our people participating by Zoom, which is Pam Sankor. Could you tell me how to pronounce your last name, Pam?
Of course. Pamela Soncourse?
Soncourse.
Soncourse.
Pamela Soncourse.
Yes.
Thank you. And Mackenzie Perry. Okay, our first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the April 22nd meeting. So if everybody has had a chance to look at those meetings or minutes, are there any...
I just have a small note on the last page. There's a misspelling of my name, just a small typo, under Home Consortium. Joa.
Oh, I was like, how did I misspell it? Okay.
Typo. Okay.
And may I just, I'm wondering when I say that I stepped aside, you're to clarify because I wasn't present at the meeting. If you're not at the meeting, I don't see how you can approve minutes. I mean, some people do, but it doesn't make sense to me.
Understood.
So when I abstained from the March 11th minutes, could I just say abstain because of
The
absence?
reason. Okay, yep.
That's good.
And just page 3, just a little thing at the top, Provincetown. It should be Provincetown instead of Provincetown. First paragraph.
On page 3.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's
Okay. Any other comments or corrections to be suggested? If not, we could have a motion to accept the minutes incorporating the suggested corrections.
I motion to accept the minutes as revised.
Okay,
I second that.
very good. Roll call vote necessary? I suppose it is. All right, John? John Barr? Sorry, Mr.
Yes.
Yes. Greg? Myra? Aye.
Lee Hamilton, aye.
Aye.
Palm?
Aye.
Mackenzie?
Aye, but I'm not sure that my vote is applicable.
Right. Yeah, you weren't here. That's correct. I recall that now. Okay, so the motion is passed. Now we go to the next.
Oh, can we, Mr. Chairman, can we go to new business and let Mackenzie
Yep.
talk
Lease
about
to
the
Locals
lease to local?
program.
Because she has a time limit.
Okay. So we're going to go to new business, Lease to Locals program in Provincetown. And Mackenzie, we have the documents on that. And Mackenzie, do you want to start talking about that? Go ahead.
Dude, thank you. I can be with you till 3:30 and then I have to jump on another call.
All right.
So we were lucky to hear about this program through Nantucket first. They were able to fund the program using a nonprofit, so we've adapted to make it applicable for a municipality to actually implement the program itself. So I know Mary provided some documents, definitely worth giving the presentation a once over. That came directly from Placemates, which is the third-party organization that we've contracted with to implement the program. But we allocated $348,500 using what the town dubs as their housing fund. It takes 30% of our rooms tax allocation and allows either of our housing boards, the Community Housing Council, who distributes our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or our year-round market rate rental housing trust, to determine how that funding is used. So they approved that funding, 97,000 of which goes directly towards Placemates contract services. So that is how we fund them in order to implement the program. The rest of the funding is reserved as the incentive stipend piece, which the general idea of the program is to take property owners who might have an eligible property, which would be a unit being used short-term, a unit not being used at all, something that hasn't been used as a year-round rental in Provincetown in the last 12 months. And if they agree to enact a year-round lease with a qualified tenant, then they're eligible for a certain stipend depending on how many bedroom sizes they are offering. So we did have to go through an RFP process as a municipality, even though our year-round trust approved the funding. They are their own entity, but we have sole sourcing documentation that there are no other organizations that are able to provide the services we were looking for. But just to be on the safe side of things, we issued an RFP, and then we took information that was derived from our short-term rental study, which I know Mary has mentioned. I don't know what background you guys have on the report that was conducted and what our findings were there. But through that study, we were given kind of a general idea of a financial amount that folks who rent seasonally, short-term, whatever their income and profit is by doing that versus what their income or profit could be by renting to somebody year-round, that financial gap was determined to sit roughly around $14,000. So the idea of the program is to offer landlords who could be using their property as a short-term rental, provide them that stipend to meet that gap that they could be receiving, and encourage them to do the year-round rental instead of, and kind of help incorporate and produce more of our naturally occurring rental housing in town, because it's slowly dwindling. We, to date, have had 5, there should be in the packet an update as of May 1st. I'm going to give you slightly different numbers because I just approved a property this morning. So we have 5 properties approved, which houses 9 qualified tenants. And to date, that's used about 68,000 of the original funding that we've allocated, which is roughly about a quarter of what we have available. So it's definitely, we've been more successful than I think we were expecting. We launched April 1st, so we've been in it for just about a month and a half now. And with those 5 properties who have already been approved and have been issued the first part of their stipend, we have another 4 properties who on the back end have been approved. They're just providing some final documents, and then as soon as those are received by the town, we'll be able to issue their stipend and they'll be incorporated into that final number. But I didn't know if there were any general questions, specific questions about how the municipality is taking it on. But I've been with this since just about the beginning of Provincetown considering it. So hopefully I can answer any questions that anyone has.
I've got a couple questions, Mackenzie. Thank you for the information. So max out is $20,000 a year for okay. Is that taxable?
Yeah, they do have to submit a W-9, so they'll receive tax forms from the town next season.
Okay, and so that they get the $20,000 on top of whatever rent payment they get, but the rent is capped at a certain number.
Yes, we have the rent cap based off of the area median income we decided on, which folks have to make under in order to be considered a qualified tenant, and they receive half of the stipend after the tenant has first moved in, And we confirm that with Placemate. They have a system to ensure that the tenant has actually moved in and everything's running smoothly. And then they receive the second half of the stipend 45 days prior to the end of the lease. So next year they'll get the second half of their stipend.
I think this is a great program. In a month and a half, you've got 5 approved, 4 in the queue. Awesome. Excellent. Thank you.
And how did you go about identifying, attracting the landlords, the property owners?
Yeah, we have I don't know if you're familiar with Provincetown's community, but it's very tight-knit, it's very small. We have a very active social media presence. So we've been lucky to have a couple of community members that have really taken it upon themselves to get the word out as best as they can. We've also coupled the promotion of this program with some other existing incentives that the town offers. So we have our residential tax exemption that folks might be eligible for if they rent their property or have a year-round use of their property. They could be eligible for the tax exemption there. We've also decided to partner promotion of this with tenants who might be eligible for our rental assistance program. We understand that the rent caps here are on the higher end, but in order to encourage folks to still be able to access any properties that might come on with this program, we've coupled it with our rental assistance program that we have. There has been a lot of outreach directly to folks who hold short-term rental certificates with the town. So we've been working with community development and our licensing department and our compliance agent to access that communications list and to let everybody who has owned a rental certificate in the last, I think they went back 3 years, to send them information about the program, as well as anybody who owns a second property. So we have, and don't quote me on the name of our committee, it's the part-time resident taxpayers, something like that. Folks who own properties, but they don't live here year-round, but they're still an important voice in our community. They were all reached out to let them know about the property. So for the most part, it's been a mix of everything, but social media has been a very strong help in getting the word out.
Thank you. That's interesting. Anybody? Go ahead, Myra.
Yeah, hi, Mackenzie. Has there been any discussion about what happens when you have someone who qualifies, say, because they work in town, then they lose their job? Do they continue to stay in the property? Do they have to get some kind of a waiver?
That's a great question. I don't know that we've had a conversation about that directly, but in our final policy guidelines, there is some language that every qualified tenant has to meet the income restriction. And then you need to meet either one of the following, which would be a local worker, already a local resident, or you can have some type of community connection. So I imagine if someone were to qualify initially and then at some point lose their employment, one, I'm not sure we would even be notified because we're only checking up midway through to make sure that the lease is still in good standing. And then I imagine if there was question about it, we would definitely be able to tap into that community involvement in some other capacity. And technically, I guess they would also meet the residential requirement already. So the working aspect of it, after they've already moved in, might be a little null and void at that point. But that's a good piece to have, especially as we're exploring some other weird anomalies that have come up.
Thank you.
So for tenants, you just tapped into the huge backlog of people that are desperate for rentals, and it's really easy to do that.
That has not been a challenge in terms of finding folks who might be eligible. I would say the only thing maybe that would have been beneficial to do slightly differently would be the marketing and how it went out to potential tenants.
Okay.
So because just considering fair housing law and what the town's able to accomplish, we're definitely not in the business of being landlords or being tenant landlord matching folks. But I think a lot of renters who were looking at the beginning were under the impression that Placemate, which is the third-party organization, and the town might have some deeper involvement in actually connecting them and the matchmaking process.
Okay.
Which we don't. So I want to say, of the properties we've approved, only one of them has come to us and said, I would like to rent my property. The town has said, yes, okay, you qualify, but they did not have a tenant in mind. So Placemate offers the opportunity for the property owner to self-list their property on their website. So it gets put up like a regular, like it looks like a rental listing. And then folks who have said that they are potential renters who are interested in being part of the program, they'll get an email notification that a property has been listed, and then they're encouraged to connect directly with the property owner themselves. We've only had that happen once because every other property owner who has come to us to participate in the program already has a tenant in mind, so they've done the back end of it.
Yeah.
A couple instances has been like a friend of a friend who wanted to participate, and so they were connected on the back end of things. One was an employee of the property owner, and so they were given that opportunity before they even came to us to vet the property. So that's been the one thing I've noticed, that as people are already very desperate, it would have been maybe a little bit easier to navigate everyone's interest after the fact, if there was more clarity about what the tenant process looked like.
Could you say a little bit more about what Placemate's role is, other than what you just said? Because they're getting a substantial.
So technically, the contract with them didn't technically start until April 1st, but we have been working with them since September. And that was just a lot of back and forth, a lot of collaboration to see what our climate was like, what they do for services, and how we might be able to make it work between us. So we were very appreciative of their involvement and eagerness to get involved before we even had agreed that they would come on as a contracted organization. But what they do is they field pretty much 90% of the interest from folks. Obviously, people are emailing me and they'll come stop in to see me in person to ask some general questions. But anybody who'd like to get vetted for eligibility, both the tenant and the property owner, they all get funneled through Placemates. And then Placemates is reaching out directly to our community development office to verify rental certificates, use of the property in the past to make sure that it hasn't been used as a year-round rental before and that it qualifies. They're in touch with our assessing department to make sure that the person who's reaching out with interest to participate is actually the registered property owner. So they've done everything, and we meet with them bi-weekly just to check in and get some updates about the success of the program. And they are pulling in the town with any of these anomaly questions if something comes up and they're like, is this qualified? It's a little bit weird, it's out of what we're familiar with, but is this something that you guys would like to have a say in? They'll reach out for that, and then at the end of it, after they've collected all the documents and they've made the determination that this property and the tenants are likely eligible, then they send everything over to me, and I'll triple check everything, and then we pay out directly through our accounting office. So I'm the one, then I'll submit the voucher for payment to go out the next week.
Quick question again about Placemates. So there's a website kind of like Redfin. So if you wanted to look and see what's available, you could go up there, or Zillow or whatever, right? Okay. If I'm living in Nantucket and I want to move to Truckee, can I do that?
I don't see why not, as long as you meet their qualifications. So if someone was, say, living in Yarmouth and they worked in Yarmouth, but they wanted to move into Provincetown, they would not qualify for our program unless they could verify that they have some other community connection to Provincetown, like they volunteer regularly at a nonprofit, or they have an art gallery here and they're attending, some type of regular community event. I'm not sure how other towns work. That's what Provincetown liked a great deal about working with Placemates, is that they have this general idea of lease to locals, but every single town and every single organization that they're partnering with to implement this, every policy that they're creating is different. So we were really able to go through every guideline that you see in that policy document and make it very specific to what we wanted as a town.
And all these other towns, they look like they're seasonal too, like.
They're all,
Yeah, right?
they're all
Okay.
wealthy seasonal towns.
Yeah.
I lived in,
Yeah.
I lived in Breckenridge, Colorado for 10 years. And it's interesting that in the case study for Breckenridge, the completed properties, 32 are seasonal, 82 are long-term. I think probably suggest, because Breckenridge, I know, has developed housing that is seasonal for the ski area. And so I'm not, it would be interesting to see how that correlates here. You may, whether you have as many long-term tenants as you do seasonal tenants.
Okay, this is pretty interesting. Any other questions at the moment?
Just real
Yeah.
quick, hi, it's Mary. You, in the beginning, you talked about the source of this money. Can you just say that again?
Yeah, so it's through what we've called the housing fund. It was approved at, I want to say it was at one of our regular town meetings. It takes 30% of our rooms tax allocation money that comes in, our revenue from rooms tax. 30% of that gets distributed into what they've called the housing fund. And it's held with the select board, but the wording of the article requires it to be distributed either into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund or into our year-round market rate rental trust for them to kind of decide how that funding will be used. So far, we've been able to access that for lease to locals. We've used some of that funding for our needs assessment that we are just about wrapping up, and we'll hopefully get data soon on that. But they've funded the needs assessment. The town also purchased a vacant parcel to be developed into affordable housing a couple years down the road. And so the housing fund was used to pay off the debt on that property purchase as well. So it's flexible in the fact that it doesn't require any secondary appropriation or approval by town meeting. That's the way we had it worded in the special act. And then because it can go to either one of the trusts, we're able to kind of play with affordability restrictions that might come into play a little later on.
Mary, we talked about this one time, and I can't remember whether we got the answer or not, but how much money is generated in Yarmouth in rooms tax every year? And is that money specifically earmarked for one purpose or a multitude of things?
If I answered that question for you correctly in the past, that information has now left my memory. So our housing program depends more on community preservation program. The rooms tax and the meals tax and all that kind of has been prioritized for the wastewater infrastructure, the sewering, and a little bit into the general fund. But I can get you those numbers. Mackenzie, you have community preservation funds as well, right? And P-Town,
Yeah, our Affordable Housing Trust Fund requests those pretty regularly. We, I think the last funding cycle, we were approved for $400,000. A significant amount of that goes towards our rental assistance program because the eligibility caps at 100% area median income based off CPA numbers, but they do have, and also a huge chunk of that went towards the development that we're hopefully breaking ground on soon for 3 Jerome Smith, which is our old VFW property. So they've been lucky to receive a lot of that, but most of it kind of has an ear tag already.
And John, as you know, you can use all these revenue streams for housing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't use the CPC money
Yeah,
for sewering.
okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just,
So that was kind of that made it easy for us to kind of advise on that decision.
CPA funding's for housing, recreation, right?
Housing,
Open space, historic.
you can't use it
Commingle
for
or,
the
yeah,
infrastructure down
structure.
Route 28. You could use it if it was part of a, let's say you had a parcel of land that needed some infrastructure, and that parcel was being developed for affordable housing, yeah, you could make that connection, but we haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's MassWorks money for that, so you can get that from the state. That was great.
Thank you.
Great presentation, fascinating thing,
Mackenzie.
We're still very early on in this process, so,
but there's already people housed.
yes,
right?
which
Yeah.
honestly is what we're looking at. And there's been a lot of conversation about, this is great for a year because they're just year-round leases, but what about after the fact? But we've coupled with what PlaceMate has seen for their retention rate, they say around 70%
I see.
of participants continue to rent long-term without the incentive into secondary years. So coupled with that, we're crossing, we have the same success. And then as our new development comes online, we're hoping this just bridges the gap, so we can just keep people here who need to be here.
Okay.
So
I know you have
I guess
to run.
only-
Can I, just one quick more question. What is the goal? How many people or how many properties are you hoping to get into this program?
Yeah, I can't say that we've determined exactly what our goal is. We did a secondary report with some kids from the Kennedy Institute. They did like a pro bono, just part of their schooling, reached out directly to our short-term rental certificate holders to see what their interest might be in a program like this. And I want to say the number that they received back, I think they got about 15 property owners that said they would be interested at any amount of a stipend. They had about, I want to say there was like another 20 property owners who said they would be interested, but at a stipend that was definitely not something the town was willing to consider committing to. So based on those numbers, I think we're definitely at least halfway there to what we were looking to accomplish. And if we were to base it similarly off of Nantucket's success, we're definitely on the right track. They've launched their program in September, and they've already expended all the funding that they were that they had allocated. And I want to say they had 20 something properties involved, which ended up housing around 50 individuals. So if we could achieve any numbers like that, we would be more than happy.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, the stipend is just for 1 year, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. In other places, the Lease to Locals program, I think there are definitely other towns who are in multiple years of the program. We have not decided if we'll continue past the pilot year or if we'll tweak and go a different direction. We're definitely discussing the idea of like a retention program to kind of promote folks who have been renting year-round to continue renting year-round, like potentially to sign a 3-year lease and then be eligible for some type of incentive. But we have not committed to anything beyond year 1 just yet.
I see.
And when you talked about community involvement, could that include people who have relatives in Provincetown? Or does it have to be some kind of physical involvement with working or activities or commitments?
I think, well, in my opinion, I would say it's always worth to see whether or not you're eligible. It doesn't hurt to apply and just to see what the options are. We haven't actually had anybody need to qualify through the community engagement piece. But for the most part, the examples we were discussing was more like, are they directly involved with like a town committee or a board or a nonprofit? Not necessarily just to have relatives in the area.
Okay,
It needs to be a little bit more deep than that.
thank you.
Well, it is 3:30, Mackenzie. We don't want to make you late.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was really good. Okay. Now we shall move on to, we're going to double back to item B on the beginning of our agenda, community business or committee business, whatever. We might want to appoint a representative to the Home Consortium Advisory Council. Is that it?
Yeah, so the Board of Selectmen, I don't think has accepted her resignation, but Lorraine Doyle has submitted a letter of resignation to this committee, and also separately to the Home Consortium. So usually what we do, this is a pretty long process to get somebody on the Home Consortium. We usually like a full-time member and an alternate.
Oh, gosh.
And you can both we can all go to the meetings, just the full member is the one that votes. But if you have an alternate member all set up, if the full member isn't available, the alternate member can actually vote, not just attend, but actually vote.
That's the cool thing.
To this.
Same idea as what we were doing with this
So
committee,
this would
yeah.
be, Josh expressed a desire to
Good.
be the town's representative. If you have, a recommendation for a full member to the Home Consortium and an alternate, we would write that up to the Board of Selectmen. They would make that recommendation to the Home Consortium, and then I think the Home Consortium does the appointments. So you can see how it takes, that just eats up a lot of time, but
Yeah, I'm definitely interested as an alternate. I don't know if I have the time commitment to be the primary representative. I'd have to look more at my schedule. But I can start at an alternate.
I'd be interested as well, if I'm eligible,
The representative or the alternate?
either one.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I'm easy that way.
yeah, you are eligible because you're a Yarmouth resident. It doesn't have to come from this committee. And in the past, it wasn't. It just kind of took that pathway with the last round.
Well, you sent us a list of the current members of the advisory council, and several of them look to be on committees that are similar to this committee in their respective towns.
It's nice to have a report back to this committee.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that link. I'm already on the Community Preservation Committee, so I'm not offering. That's very.
Well, I think it's great that Greg and Joshua are interested and
You want to make that recommendation to
Should
the Board of Selectmen?
make that recommendation, yeah.
You might want to call for a formal vote.
Yes.
Okay. I would like someone to make a motion to recommend that the Select Board consider Joshua Trott and Greg Wheeler as potential members and/or alternate members of the Barnstable County Home Consortium Advisory Council.
And with Josh's preference to.
Joshua has expressed a preference to be the alternate.
Good.
Okay, so somebody else, just say, I make the motion that Drew just outlined.
Make the motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Greg,
Sure.
say yes, say aye or nay or something like that. Aye?
Am I allowed to
John?
vote on myself? Aye.
Sure. Aye.
Lee, aye.
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 Okay, it passed unanimously. That recommendation will be made. So we're done with that, right? Old business. Soldier-on veteran housing model. How we coming on
Yeah, so
a
those
date for
dates
that?
didn't work.
Yeah.
The last date we were talking about was
June 3?
June 3rd, and then that
There's another thing happening.
imploded somehow or another. Something happened.
Myron knows what happened.
I don't know exactly.
It's a listening session.
A listening session.
Oh, and that's MHPs.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, and I'll talk about that under community development. So I'll ask them, they seem pretty flexible. The only thing is that the building that we're looking at is like a brick apartment building.
Yeah.
I remember they weren't done with the other one, so I was wondering if we could see when the other one would be ready for visitors.
Okay.
And the pace
Tell me
that
more
we're-
about the other one. I'm forgetting what the other one is like exactly, when you're saying the,
Simsbury or something like that.
Yeah, it was just a more traditional site-built property instead of a brick one that might fit our needs better.
Yeah.
okay.
So I'll bring that up. And by the time we find a date, it might be,
It'll be all done.
so we'll just try this,
Being renovated.
right, so maybe the second week in June?
It happens in June. That's still pretty good.
Right.
Throwing that out there is
Second
my
week in June is the
feeling.
10th to the 14th.
You want to avoid a
Short
Friday
week.
going off and on the canal.
Is it a short week? No.
No, I'm just kidding.
10th, 11th. So, yeah, are you guys all around the 10th to the?
I think the 11th is the only day I would be unable to do.
Is the other one located again?
I'm around.
Okay. And I'll start to do the, more than one date in time.
Okay, so there's that urban one that's in a big city apartment building, and there's
The Brighton.
that's Brighton, and there's another one in a town that we can't quite remember as we sit here.
Sparrow, yeah.
Yeah, probably,
It was like
okay.
more of a cottagey or like small buildings, multifamily buildings, but smaller. And that's probably the model that we want.
That's right. Okay, so that's as far as we can go with that right this minute, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Affordable housing standards.
So I took what we had worked on, finally sent it to the Director of Community Development, Karen Green, and our planner, and they really didn't have any more comments. So I was gonna accept all the red lines and send it to the town manager, the town administrator, and see if we could explain that these were approved back in the day, I think 2012, as Board of Selectmen policy. And the whole emphasis on this, the real motivator right now to update them is that we set the maximum affordable rent for local action units and friendly Chapter 40Bs, kind of below what the state sets, because we feel that even though we're in Barnstable County, still when we make that technical calculation of the rent, it still seems high.
Saying this is the purpose of revising the standards.
Yeah, is
Right.
to kind of press down our local affordable units that we help create, press those rents down to 65% of AMI, whereas the state sets them at 80% AMI. And the town of Barnstable is doing that.
Right.
That's what they do. So, and still, I find households that can't afford those rents. A lot of households that can't afford those rents. So that's the main purpose, but we tweaked a lot of stuff in there. Got rid of a lot of stuff
Okay,
that we
so the
didn't
next
need.
step now is for you to
I have to
take-
get it on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Sounds good.
We'll be making another trip.
Okay.
The HPP was submitted up to the state, so hopefully
Oh, yeah.
by the time all of this comes around, we can announce to the Board of Selectmen that the HPP is all set.
Okay. Now, we did our Lease to Locals program presentation, education and outreach program. I remember last time we discussed how to create videos, and you have video clips, scripts, listed here.
Yes, so I think I was responsible for one for the Ready Renter program. Yep,
Okay, I offered to do what is affordable housing, and couldn't do it. I struggled.
I see.
So,
do you want me to write something up and then you can humanize it?
Oh, see, I can edit. I can't, I don't know enough about affordable housing in general yet to be able to say, oh, I can do a summary. And, I'd rather have someone else's ideas and then work on it, like, technically, like edits or for time or whatever.
Is it possible we could do a shared Google Doc or something similar that we could work on collaboratively, or?
I have no idea. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think you can. I think we would get called on open meeting law.
Okay.
Do you want to take a crack at it?
I wouldn't mind.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so in order to follow the correct rules about open meeting, like if...
Well, Josh and Myra can work together.
Okay, all
And
right.
Mackenzie very nicely offered, remember when we said that she could actually do the video, and she was right on board with it, and I said, oh, I can get you something next week. Nope. So I think she's still interested in actually presenting,
Good.
but, yeah.
Yes, she did a great
I
presentation.
know, so that's really good, but I just
This
couldn't.
is progress, Myra. This is progress,
created.
because now, if you guys work together on it, you, Joshua and Myra, I'll bet between the two of
Very
you,
good.
you can come up with something really good, yeah.
And then we wanted to do something about upcoming projects, right? So why don't I start that?
Okay.
So nobody is surprised. And that can be the trusts update too, right, Myra?
Oh, yeah.
That can
I
be
just
the
wish we could
trust.
do a video on the Affordable Housing Trust.
I know, Myra.
I've given up that, you know.
It'll happen,
is.
just maybe not this week. And then Myra, do you think you had enough info from that lease to locals to update the trust on that? I mean, if I
I
put
think
it,
so. She's already given us a presentation and like a summary.
Yeah, that packet has a lot of good information on it.
Yeah, it does.
so if I put it on the trust
We're
agenda?
actually in this packet, a couple of pages in, on, so they're looking at 29 units to house 54 people.
Thank you.
So if I put it on the trust agenda, Myra, would you do that update for the trust? Okay. Because you need a funding source.
Yeah.
And they might say yes, and they might say, we'll do a pilot project, or they might say, this is a big deal, let's take it as a formal CPC application and bring it to town meeting. So there's different things they've done in the past. The trust, that motel redevelopment fund, which ended up being 3.75 million, those were all direct votes by town meeting. They didn't want to use their general deposit money because they thought it was too important. They wanted the buy-in of
Right,
the voters.
yeah. We're not having a meeting tomorrow, are we?
No.
Okay, good. I, for one, would like to get a better understanding of how the Affordable Housing Trust Fund works. Even though I'm the one that presents the request at the town meeting, and I think they can ask me any questions, and they don't.
Would you like a summary of everything for our next meeting here?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Pretty good.
Just writing that down. Okay.
Okay, so now I think we're going to head to number 4, reports and actions. May I hear a fanfare, please? Thank you. Vice Chair's report. Mass Housing Partnership listening session. Now, we alluded to that. That's going to be on June 3rd, evidently, right?
Yes. I think it's at 10 a.m.
Right, and that would prohibit us from going to Brighton or wherever we wanted to go on that particular day if we want to participate in that.
Yep. And I was honestly thinking of going as a Mashpee resident.
Okay.
So you guys let me know if you're comfortable representing Yarmouth.
What are our duties as representatives of Yarmouth at the listening session?
You did before.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the whole thing is, I think you could use that base of comments that everybody came up with
Right.
before. They need to know that, Route 28 is getting the wastewater infrastructure
Yep.
and that we're getting lots of requests to review multifamily housing on Route 28. And that we have inclusionary zoning, so we're capturing 10% of those, basically 10% of those units for affordable housing. So they need to hear that, you know? I think we talked about a little bit about, you know, maintaining our environmental quality, improving our environmental quality. Like they need to hear that. And that our HPP was just updated, it's been submitted, and we identified affordable rental housing as the biggest need, but that we still see a need for starter homes. So.
Okay, so here's the thing of me, like, the things that I do and we do get mixed up in my mind. I represented Yarmouth at some kind of a listening session recently.
Chapa, I think it was, wasn't it?
Weren't you part of that? Weren't you on that?
listening.
You were listening. Laura
that
Schufelt,
kind of
no,
session.
Laura Schufelt was the moderator of this thing. So I thought that's Mass Housing Partnership, right?
Right.
And you couldn't be there.
She might be the moderator, yeah, I double booked.
Okay, so how is this different from that?
This is the governor's 5-year housing plan.
Okay.
This is super important.
Oh, no, but what was that thing that I'm referring to that you asked me to be at?
That was the Chiapas Regional
Okay,
Listening
so
Session.
she was in a different capacity
Yeah.
for that one. Okay, that's what got mixed up in my mind.
Yeah, me too,
So
until
did
you
we
just
put
said it.
together the outline for discussions for Chapa or for,
For Chiapa, but I think they're the same.
be
I can email
interchangeable?
those, I can email those out again.
Okay, does that make sense, Drew?
Yes, it does now. It didn't before. It confused me. But if you email those out, that would help me,
Yep.
because I will do this for sure with anybody else who wants to do it. But
I'll probably listen in, but
Yeah.
I don't think I'll have the time to speak.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll try to listen.
yeah, I'll try to tell me all the points.
And then we
that'll
talked
help me,
something
you know.
about financing. Myra had brought up financing and how, this is very important that the governor hear that we use the money they make available and that we want state and federal funds that will match our local CPC funds. You know,
Yeah, well, if you can help me
yep.
get those bullet points together, I could do it, you know?
Do a good job.
Yeah.
With
we-
talking points.
Right.
Did we ever clarify with the states, what's the word I'm looking for, where they are with seasonal communities? Remember, they identify seasonal
No,
communities?
I never. So the budget is now being discussed at the State House, and that's part of the budget. I mean, I can email your state senator and reps and ask for an update. I'm not, I'm not sure we'll get anything
Right.
solid, but I can.
Yeah, knowing more about the seasonal community designation, I think would help us.
Oh, because if it's not a done deal, we could make those comments on June 3rd. I got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Mary, you know, at the end of that Chapa listening session, there was a whole bunch of references, links, in the chat section. And I contacted them and I said, can you make these available? Because as soon as I got off, the
Yep.
chat session was gone.
That's correct.
And I haven't heard back, but I think it would be really helpful for us if they can just, just copy and paste it's just a bunch of links to different resources, but it went away.
I remember that now. That was disconcerting for a moment there, like, what?
So, yeah.
Right. Yep, I can get that. Oh, I have a little to-do list here.
It's a big to-do list.
So you're getting paid the big bucks, right? We're all so proud of you.
Yeah, I went through Mashpee, I forget when, drove through Mashpee on the way to Falmouth, and I saw your signs everywhere.
See my signs? So it's in the Cape Cod Times, had a newspaper article. I did get reelected to the planning board in Mashpee over the weekend, so.
Congratulations.
Was it nerve-wracking at all?
Yes.
Yeah? Wow.
But what's nice is like, you know, you always hate that competition, but it actually makes you go out and talk to people and, you know, and.
The real deal.
It's
yeah.
the real deal, and I learned a lot. And Mashpee is a little bit different than Yarmouth because it doesn't have as many. You know, it's 15. The population is 15,000. Here it's 25,000. It doesn't have as many areas of kind of like higher density. Yarmouth has the highest density overall on the Cape.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. And of
Yarmouth
course,
and part of Barnstable.
you guys don't have green ponds and rivers like Mashpee does. We have a serious pollution problem. I mean, we're all, you know, need to work on our sewering, but you guys don't have that visual impact
So
yet.
many visual situations.
So, yeah. So,
Okay.
thank you for noticing.
Oh, yeah. I'm noticing. Okay, now it says Home Consortium. What else did we want to say about that, if anything? Nothing.
Oh, I can tell you a little bit that they're still working on the Regional Housing Office, and I've been invited to participate as representing the town at a meeting this week. The Regional Housing Office. And,
I instinctively, that seems like a really good idea to me, but maybe other people feel it's really bad because it takes away the sovereignty of the towns or something.
well,
I
this
don't know.
would be like it's supposed to fill the gap for towns that don't have affordable housing staff. So one of the things, and it's one of the first things we did here, was to watch over all the properties that are already affordable and make sure anything that's what they call an expiring use gets saved and brought, you know, protected and make sure it stays affordable. So that's what they want to start with, right? And that makes sense. That's what we did. But Yarmouth is kind of like, do we want to participate in this if they're doing something that we're already doing in-house? Do you know what I mean? So we're trying to get them excited about the regional Ready Renter program, where they would do the lottery or maintain the regional wait list for renters and that kind of stuff. So we'll see. You know, other things they could do is have a centralized location, so when there's any type of lottery or open wait list or anything like that, they're the office you go to and get help.
Who's putting on this?
So they got ARPA money to study what are the needs for a regional office? Is it needed? What are the priority needs? And then how it would be funded.
Is it the commission or the county?
County.
Okay.
And it's really gone through the office of the Home Consortium, even though it's not Home Consortium money.
Okay.
It's ARPA money. But then there's this whole, after the ARPA money is gone, who funds it? And the way we funded the Regional Ready Renters program at first was that towns paid a subscription fee. And you just annually re-up your subscription. And then when you need services from that office, you don't get charged by the hour. But that's changed because the Ready Renter program is no longer, it was at the county level, it was at the Cape Cod Commission. Today, it would be at the county, not the Cape Cod Commission, but anyways. But that all changed when that program was administered in-house from Yarmouth, even though it's still a regional program. That just changed. So what we do now is we charge kind of by the project for the Ready Renter services.
The Home Consortium used to be under the county,
Yeah.
and it transferred to the Department of Human Services. I used to be under Cape Cod Commission.
It used to be under the Cape Cod Commission. Yeah. So that all kind of moved around,
Right, right.
which was fine. So that's the update on the home consortium.
Okay. I'm the representative from the Yarmouth Housing Authority. I don't have any announcement to make today at this meeting about the Housing Authority. How about the Planning Board?
Before we move from that, I could just note that at the town meeting, the Yarmouth Town Meeting, were you there?
No.
Okay. At the Yarmouth Town Meeting, there was, I won't name him, but he was very outspoken throughout the whole meeting. And he talked about the property at the Forest Road, and he kept talking about how committees were going to work on housing there. And he didn't understand, or nor did anybody want to get up and challenge him, that it wasn't committees, it was the Yarmouth Housing Authority.
I
So
did
he
watch
didn't seem
the
to have his facts correct.
video of it, yeah. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about. I watched it on video, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a topic for a video. Who's doing housing in Yarmouth? You know?
Well, he didn't seem to have clarity on who was doing it.
Right.
So-
But some people just get very confused when they have a housing committee and they have a housing authority and they have a housing trust fund.
Well, those people include me.
Hey, you know, that's why we need, maybe that's something I could write. I don't know.
And Palm, evidently.
Well, I do
your
understand the
reaction, Tom.
distinction between, I've been at that meeting about the Housing Authority and the Forest Road issue, and I was at that fun meeting at the senior center, so I'm very clear on the distinction.
Good. I am too. That's two of us anyway.
So the Affordable Housing Trust, I think, Myra, we meet that last Tuesday of the month.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the day after Memorial Day, but I will have to double check.
Oh, I skipped over that.
We
yeah.
took a little pause, which was good because I have to like catch up, like get some of these RFPs out and contracts signed, and that's how you get the units online is expend the funds. So, Planning Board, no update.
Okay. Okay, now Community Preservation Committee.
The Affordable Housing Trust Fund was approved at the town meeting for $200,000.
Right.
That's all I have to,
And you had the honor of proposing that to the meeting.
making their recommendation.
Right, yeah.
To the board, to the town, yeah.
Okay. Department of Community Development.
Yep, so I've been working with the town planner on the new language for the cash payment in lieu of on-site affordable housing.
Right.
So what I did is I talked to our consultant on the HPP, Karen Sonneborg, and kind of got her thoughts on what other towns are doing. So the language that we proposed to the planning board was very similar to what Karen Sonneborg has seen or worked with in other communities. Then Kathy Williams, our town planner, went on that Mass Planners listserv and asked what other towns are doing. So maybe about 30% of the other towns that responded would calculate it the same way we did. And then there were some like funkier calculations, that I was like, oh, this is like way beyond what we'd be able to, calculate. And I think that was some people wanted to use not pay out what the affordability gap is, right? That's how we're going to do it, I hope, but they wanted to know what it was to construct the house, right? And that John had talked about that a little bit, but it looked like you really had to know how to process a lot of construction data and a lot of construction costs, and there's just nobody, I think, at Town Hall that could do that. So, and I think we're gonna end up in the same place. So, it might be the first Wednesday or the third Wednesday in June that will be presented to the planning board, the Yarmouth Planning Board. So you can pencil that in, and they're going to start at 5 o'clock and have it, 5:30, and have that be the first item, because those are my meeting nights in Mashpee. So, but yeah, so that's what's going on in community development. And of course, the planning board is started the update to the local comprehensive plan. So the local comprehensive plan, is based on that regional policy plan from the Cape Cod Commission. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the regional policy plan. Maybe next time I'll bring it in.
Is it in a special case or something?
It's this large,
It is,
it's
I guess.
printed on 11 by 17 paper.
Yeah.
It's tabloid, and it's spiral, and it's double-sided and all color, and it's, yeah, and they have these place types, and they have planning categorized into 3 major sections: the built environment, the community environment, which is like us, and the natural environment. And then inside of that, they have these place types where you're supposed to accommodate all 3 in some way. So it's pretty interesting. In all the local comprehensive plans from this point on have to comply with that. The old ones that were certified back whenever don't. They stay certified forever. But the newer ones have to go with the current RPP, and that would be Yarmouth, so.
I think if, at the very beginning, everybody had to follow the RPP with pretty stringently, I think.
The RPP changed radically at the last update. It changed radically. And the RPP, doesn't it get updated every 5 years?
Theoretically.
So the next update is due. Anyways, that's ComDev.
With that development that's going up on 6A, that's bought out of the
Yes.
affordable housing,
Yeah.
that's going to be, they've leveled the land and they're working on the land. They haven't started doing any of the construction. But that's going to be another challenge on 6A. We already got the condo on the other side of the road a little further down, and you've already got, traffic stops because people want to turn in there. They want to take a left there. So that's just going to be,
They did
Another
change
challenge.
the driveway, or the road, or whatever you want to call it. It was originally going to be right across from Hockanut, and that would have been, but. The only other thing I know is that people are very unhappy about all the vegetation that was removed on 6A.
yeah.
But the line of sight was the discussion, with all those meetings, was that they said, okay, well, if we move the entrance, we've got to have the people being able to see. And so I think they really didn't have much choice on that,
Well,
but
it was a little messy a few times on the road there. It was a little challenging because things were falling out on 6A and it was and
Such a
now it's
narrow
not.
road.
It's been clear for a while, but there were a couple of times it was a little challenging there because I go up and down 6A all the time. I'm
Right.
Officer Tuckett.
the neighborhood is very interested.
I bet, and it's going to create challenges. How many units are going to be there? How many?
Was it
I
14?
think it's 14, and it is a cluster subdivision, so there is open space. A lot of people have approached me and called me or come into the town hall saying, is that all affordable housing? And I say, I wish.
None of it's.
And then their eyes really open up. No. And then, I explain how the cash payment in lieu worked. And, it's a learning experience.
Did answer a question about that. Someone was really extremely unhappy that it was, what was it, 100,000?
Yes, it was.
They were like, what?
It's like it was 150,000 per unit, and that's why we need to change it. We need to update
Well, that's
that
what I said. I
formula.
said the, Community Housing Committee is working on that, and we have to go through other committees and so forth and so on, but it's been noted and, we're working on it.
We'll get it. The trust will get 2 units, if not more, from that. Yeah.
So the funding will go into the trust.
Oh, yeah. Yep. We have, it's a little bit of a lengthy process to accept the check, because our town council is like, Mary, you can't just accept a check. You have to have a contract as to why you are accepting that money. I'm like, oh, that's a good idea.
Because they're giving it to us.
There's some reason why he's town council.
Right.
Right? Yeah. But it really does show, like, because that property, when that came up for sale, I brought that to the trust. And I said, would you be interested in it? And they said, let's see what the market does. And if it doesn't get bought up or whatever, the seller gets frustrated, then they can come to us and we'll take a look at it. But it's an interesting way about how Yarmouth proceeds with affordable housing. They do it in the right place, at the right time, and high quality. So it's not everywhere. It's a good example when you're out and about talking to people. We do it when it's at the right time in the right place, and we don't step in the way of any market rate developer.
It's interesting because I know our focus is on affordable housing, mostly capital A affordable housing, but the name of our committee is Community Housing, and those market rate residences are so badly needed. Mm-hmm. Even though they're not affordable units. Just anecdotally, you hear about nurses quitting left and right because they can't afford to live here. And that's why we have all the other nurses coming down and living in the short-term rentals. Yeah. And, not only nurses, but doctors making a good amount of money, just can't get a place. Mm-hmm. So there's a definite market for those rentals. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I think, should, be supportive of, as well as the affordable,
Exactly. Yep.
Absolutely. More market rate units will drive more units to be lowercase a affordable as we meet market saturation. Right now, there's just so much fighting over every available unit that people can charge whatever they want, realistically.
Yep.
Supply,
Yep.
demand.
Oh, and before we go on, I'm kind of looking at Palm on this. I just want to, do you guys have any agenda items for June 10th? So these are things that you might have thought up today. I know we'll put on under committee business, reorganizing chair, vice chair, and clerk. But if there's anything else, even if you leave today, let me know if there's something you'd like to put on the agenda. That way I can propose it to the vice chair and get it on the agenda for June 10th. And I don't know, Pam, did you ask for something on the agenda?
Just the times for the visit. But everything else, I would love, like everything in terms of dates and times.
Okay.
I did see that we had some info on Eau Claire Village here, but it wasn't on our agenda today.
Would you announce that? We can announce that under, just because we're not going to take a motion or anything on it.
Okay. So this is just some information on Eau Claire Village in Mashpee, which is opening up in summer 2024. 39 units that are all affordable at either 60% or 30% AMI. And this is through Housing Assistance Corporation.
And so if you went on to Housing Assistance Corporation's website, you'd be able to easily find this application?
Yep, we have online applications on the website. You can get physical copies at our office at 460 West Main Street in Hyannis. This little flyer that's been going around has a QR code. If you're technologically fancy like that. Has all the income guidelines for household size and everything listed pretty clearly.
Yep. It's a good flyer. I looked at it. It's good information.
So are you all comfortable with me asking for for this to be posted on the Yarmouth website?
Yes, I would encourage that.
All right, will do. And so this is in my town.
That's the town of Mashpee, ladies and gentlemen.
Mashpee. And you know what's really interesting is that right around it is that timeshare. There's a timeshare that slowly becoming the majority of timeshare owners want to sell their timeshare. So it'd be and they're nice units. The timeshare units, you know, they're older, but they're in good shape. Wouldn't that be interesting if
Yes.
that was affordable housing too?
So, not to sound stupid, but Falmouth Road is Route 28.
Take a shot at it.
Falmouth Road is Route 28, right. So Route 151 is Nathan Ellis Highway, right?
I
And then
noticed
Route
that.
28 is Falmouth Road in Mashpee. And so it's, as you're going through Mashpee, you go through the Commons and you're going into Falmouth, there's like this tennis club over to the left, and there's these tennis courts. You're like, what are these tennis courts? And that's the timeshares tennis courts, and I think they do lessons there and all that stuff. Well, LeClaire Village is behind that.
Okay.
And it's very pretty. The picture here, usually the pictures are better than what you.
Okay.
Actually, the buildings are beautiful. They're beautiful.
Really?
And yep, it was on town-owned land, and they put it out for RFP for disposition for affordable housing. And POA and Housing Assistance Corporation submitted an application, and they were picked.
Who is POA? What does POA stand for?
Preservation of affordable housing.
Yeah.
Conservation.
Yeah, so they do those low-income housing tax credits. They know how to handle those. And yeah, and the info session on that is the 29th?
For those of us who know Mary LeClaire, we're delighted to see this named after her.
Yep, she did the groundbreaking.
But she,
Yeah, so Mary LeClaire was on the board of Housing Assistance Corporation for a while. So,
That's cool.
yeah. And she's a Yarmouth resident. So, yeah.
Very neat.
All right, I'll get that up. Any other agenda items for June 10th?
Doesn't look that way.
So if it's okay with you guys, we'll have working group meetings on June 7th at 2 p.m. And we'll start with outreach and education so that we can maybe go through some of the text and the scripts for the videos. And then our next meeting is June 10th, 2024. Who put that 2023
Gee.
in there? Gee, I'm really lagging.
Speaking of stupid.
At 3 p.m. I've had a lot on my mind lately.
Yeah. Like what year is it? Hey, I'm just kidding around. I would like to adjourn the meeting now because I think we've covered everything. Does people agree with? If anyone agrees with that, I would attain.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, second. All in favor, say aye.
I
The meeting is.
Aye.
Thank you, Pam.
Percentage.
You're welcome.
The meeting is adjourned.